Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, Ryan McGowan and Tam McManus are here with me. Delighted to have your company. And if you get the chance, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. We will be delighted if you can join the football family. If incidentally you want to get all the breaking news at your fingertips, then why not download the app as well. Okay, great to have you here with us. We've got lots to talk about. Scotland, Croatia on the Friday. It's something that Tam absolutely loves, which is international football. Our reporter out there in the field at Hampden to speak to the assistant John Carver was Kerry Pollock.
Just a few days to go before Scotland host Croatia here at the National Stadium in the Nations League. And in fact, the last time Steve Clarke's men stepped out here at Hampden Park, they were joined by superstars such as Diogo Jota, Cristiano Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes. And Scotland assistant boss John Carver says he loved nothing more than seeing those players leave the pitch without a smile on their faces.
I think it's a big lift. I think you see in the reaction of the fans at the end of the game. Normally when you draw a game, people are disappointed, but I think it was the manner in which we performed and how we did it. If you think about it, we were close to actually getting something in Croatia as well, and that was a huge disappointment. But we used the same starting 11 against Portugal, and I love it when we disappoint one of the world's best footballers. He's coming off in a huff because he's frustrated. He's frustrated because he didn't score. We kept the clean sheet, so it's always a good thing.
And 4 years ago this week, Scotland qualified for their first major tournament since 1998. And since then, the country have qualified for 2 European Championships. John Carver says it's always nice to look back at the fond memories he has of that time and how far the national team has come.
I know how far I've come because it was 4 years that my calf blew up. And I was on crutches for 3 months. So I remember the pain. But it's testament to the guys. You know, we keep talking about how many caps they've made, the tournaments we've actually qualified for. The one tick of the box that I want and all the players want is the next big competition, which is the World Cup. And qualifying for that would be amazing. It's going to be tough. It's tougher than qualifying for the Euros. But, you know, we've travelled on a journey and it's got us to where we are now, which I said earlier about we're in the top group of the Nations League. We're desperate to stay in that top group, but progress, and there's been good progress, would be the next bit is qualifying for the World Cup.
Can Scotland kick on from their draw against Portugal last time out? We'll find out this Friday night. Kick-off is at 7:45.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks to Kerry. It's an interesting take over the last couple of days. Some of the quotes attributed to him. Just basically stating that if Scotland win the 2 games roughly, suddenly we could be looking at finishing second.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe because obviously other teams will be saying the same thing and they've got more points than us. You know, we haven't shown that we can win games against the teams in this group. They are quality teams, there's no doubt about that, but until we start winning games, then I can't see that happening.
Yeah, is he being overly optimistic?
No, I don't think so. I think when you look at performances against Croatia away and Portugal at home, Poland at home, then I think you're looking at, you know, you could possibly get 6 points out of these games. I think that we're capable of winning those games. I thought we were very unlucky against Poland. You know, some individual errors, particularly one at the end of the game with Grant Hanley, cost us at least a point in that game, and in Croatia as well. So I think 6 points are needed, but I think we're capable of getting them, Peter, because I think you can take a lot from the performances against Croatia away and Portugal at home.
Yeah, 6 points needed. Croatia have waned and Poland are always average. Just a few of the comments coming in. And of course, some people, like yourself, Tam, Les says bloody international breaks. So that sums it up for him. Well, listen, when you look at the squad, Ryan, Craig Gordon, Robbie McCrory, Kieran Slicker, Nicky Devlin, Grant Hanley, Jack Henry, Scott McKenna, Ryan Porteous and Anthony Ralston. And then you've got that some other defenders in Andy Robertson, John Suter, Greg Taylor. Then the midfield, Connor Barron, Ryan Christie, Ben Doak, who's playing well on loan at Middlesbrough, Ryan Gold, Billy Gilmer, John McGinn, Kenny McLean, Scott McTominay, Lewis Morgan, Che Adams, Tommy Conway, Lyndon Dykes and Lawrence Shanklin. I mean, what do you make of that squad?
think it's probably the best available squad that he can have. There's been a couple of call-offs, but I think overall the sort of starting 11 or 12 players that he's always kind of relied on are there. And like Tom said, I think they should fear no one at home. You know, as much as results haven't been as good or performances, I think that recently you've seen the performances that have been much better. And yeah, I do fancy them to beat Croatia. I think Poland will be a bit more of a difficult one over there in Poland. But you know, if you win that first game, they'll be going over there full of confidence.
Slowly but surely, Ruffy, you can start to see the change of young players that you've still got coming through who are making themselves available that could be the next generation for the midfield area. I still can't see the next generation in the front striking area or any generation in the centre half area.
No, it's the two positions that we're not talking about of rising young stars coming through. They all seem to be in the midfield area, which is always good. You like to see young boys getting a chance. But yeah, I keep repeating myself, you know, and I get his point about playing in the top division now, which is great. I think everybody would love to play against the top teams rather than playing the wee friendlies that don't really mean much. So from that aspect, I think if you go down a league, then you will win games, and winning games gives you confidence. But I keep harping on about that. He keeps talking about the World Cup, and I just keep saying if we don't start winning games, we're going to end up in pot 3. And it's harder to go into the World Cup finals in pot 3. It's a lot easier in pot 2.
Yeah, but the general consensus, and I think this is one of the comments that he made that, you know, is open to debate, is are we closing the gap on the top nations because we're playing against them regularly?
Yeah, I think so, Peter. Obviously, the results haven't been great, but I think performances have been decent, Peter. I think that silly mistakes at the back, you know, not really having a striker that can punish teams when you're on top. I think that's been the difference between us and the bigger nations. I think playing against bigger nations, Ryan obviously played for Australia. I think you learn a lot more from playing against a big nation than playing against a San Marino or a Gibraltar, where you're just dominating the ball and it's how many goals can you score, and you're playing against a team that's probably League 1, League 2 level. So, no, I do. I think that the better the team you play, obviously the players will learn more from it. But listen, football's about results, Peter, and listen, these critics will look at it and go 1 win in 16 or 17, whatever it is. But I think that doesn't tell the full story. I think there's been a lot of really good performances in there, but I'm looking at the strikers there. Probably Tommy Conway's maybe the only one that's kind of scoring goals at the minute, Peter. Lawrence Shanklin's off the boil. Lyndon Dykes is struggling at Birmingham. Shea Adams has been injured back in the team, so it could be an opportunity for a Tommy Conway maybe to come in the team as he's a man in form at club level. Yeah,
we just need to try and get a bit of confidence, because if anything, you know this yourself, Ryan, nobody really actually remembers, oh, we actually played well in that game and we're unlucky.
Exactly. You know, everyone talks about, I think we'll touch on it later, you know, some of Scotland's best ever results or games that you really appreciate. You just remember the result and probably the goal that was scored. You don't remember if you had 20% possession, 30% possession, but the way that football's going and the players that Scotland have, they are able to be one of those sort of dominating teams. And the playing against the harder opposition, it was different for when I was playing for Australia, because we maybe only had one player that played in the Premier League. So playing against these bigger nations was a really good test for us to see the calibre of player. But you know, half of that squad play in, you know, great leagues. Most of them down south in the Premier League, a couple in Italy. So they're playing against top quality players week in, week out. So they shouldn't really notice that much of a jump when they're playing these bigger nations. But at the same time, it will hopefully hold them in good stead for if they do qualify for the World Cup or the Euros. You know, they know what kind of level they need to be at to progress in that. Was
there a big scalp that Australia managed to take in a game that surprised everybody if you were playing against a big nation?
Not recently. Definitely not when I was playing.
Yeah.
The World Cup that we were involved in, probably the best bit was we were beating Holland 2-1.
Yeah.
That was just during the game, but
Tim Cahill scored.
Yeah.
Cahill scored,
was that a golden generation for you?
No, the golden generation would have been 2006 World Cup with Cahill, Viduka, Harry Kewell, Lucas Neal, Schwarzer. That was that's in Australia, that's what everyone talks about, the golden generation. And back then we had 5, 6, 7 players playing in the Premier League, a couple in Italy. So since then it's gone downhill.
Yeah. And is there an apathy towards Australian football?
What do you mean?
Well, is there a drop-off in interest? Sometimes if you suddenly get... I mean, Australia for me is a rugby-mad country.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you get a situation where suddenly, you know, the national side is doing really well in football, you know, there's a switch of attention. There's a groundswell of people enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, we probably have lost that. We've maybe lost a proper superstar. You know, like that, the golden generation. You could pick between, you know, Lucas Neal, Mark Viduka, Harry Kewell, Tim Cahill. Now, you know, if I was to ask you to name 4 players, you're probably struggling to pick one that plays every week for the national team. So, in that case, it does. But you know, we did well in the last World Cup. We only lost to Argentina in the round of 16, which is the best ever sort of that we've progressed to. But at the same time, yeah, we're just kind of missing that little bit of X factor, and like probably almost every country, those younger players kind of coming through and really making a stake in the team.
So with that in mind, Tam, and interestingly enough, Ruffy talking about is getting to the World Cup on the basis of, you know, if we were to qualify for the World Cup, I don't think Ruffy really has any leg to stand on for any, you know, statement that he should be going on the tour with us.
No, obviously he left his high and dry going to Germany, Peter. You know, and he went up north to do 2 or 3 after dinner gigs and fill his own pockets for with money.
Yeah.
He didn't put the company first. He didn't put us first. He put himself first. He was selfish.
Yep.
So I would suggest that if we do go to LA or Toronto or Mexico, then Alan doesn't go.
If we go to Mexico, I don't think we're coming back. I think we'll be. I think we could be in deep trouble in that country. And of course, I think that's, as an outsider and you know, one of those neutrals, Ryan, when you show that level of disdain for the company, having started with it 12 years ago, there's no excuse, is there?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
You have no queries.
You have to move on. You can't start lingering in disappointment.
To be fair,
They obviously really want you to go.
Yeah,
it's still, was it 2 years' time?
Yeah.
It'll be like weekend at Bernie's with Ruffy. We'll kid on he's alive and we'll take him through customs.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Get me the front of the queue at Disneyland.
just swatting him with flies. Anyway, no, Ruffy will be. He'll certainly be with us still. Because he's not really exerting any kind of exercise at the moment in tennis or golf, so I'm almost certain he's going to be okay. Confident? What do you think? Prediction?
Yeah, I think we can beat Croatia. I think they're a kind of ageing team. I think they're on the downward trajectory. I think we can beat Croatia in front of a packed Hampden, so I'll go win. Poland away it'll be tougher, as Ryan said there. I'll go for a draw away from home. So I think we'll pick up 4 points, which probably won't be enough for second.
Okay, Ruffy?
Yeah, like Ryan said, we should be beating these teams at home. I think it depends, you know, the way he sets out the team. I think we're a very, very difficult team when we're organised, you know, and we don't want to get beat, but it's different when we want to win. I think if you look at the games when we sort of open up, we're very vulnerable to getting picked off quite easy with these top teams. So I think it depends the team selection, and depends if he wants to go for the win right for the start.
So Croatia.
Yeah, I'm going for a win.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, win.
Okay. Poland.
More difficult, obviously. They've been about. They've still got a lot of good players on their side. So, as Tam said, a draw would be a great result, but it's not going to help us.
Not enough.
No.
Okay. I think there's a suggestion flying haggis. I genuinely, haven't looked at the possibility of a playoff, but flying haggis says, if I understand correctly, we could end up with a playoff against England to stay in Group A. And someone has said if Scotland finished third in the group and English finished second in theirs, they could meet in a playoff to see who's in League A for the next time around. All sorts of permutations on these things, but
yeah, I think obviously with Greece beating England, I think that there's a possibility now, obviously, of England possibly finishing second in their group and us finishing third. So I'm like you, Peter, I've not really looked in depth at the Nations League, but I think that'd be a game everybody would look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Always like a wee game against England.
Would we go down to London for that?
The three of us,
Yeah.
possibly. Yeah, I mean it's a good thing. Going
Right away.
down there. Yeah.
You might have gigs up in Lossiemouth or
Yeah.
Liverpool
Oh, I'll
or
probably
something.
just use 2 of my tickets because I'm in the Hall of Fame. So I'll get 2 tickets for any of the Scotland games.
Exactly, we'll be happy to see you there. Anyway, we'll find out about that. Give us your thoughts on Scotland. I think there might be. I'm interested to see what the crowd is on Friday. Whether there is that kind of apathy towards Scotland in this nations group. Anyway, I mean, I think we genuinely hope we can get 2 positive results. You never know; there could be a twist in the tail along the way. But I certainly don't think a loss at home will do us any great favours as far as the momentum and as far as some people who just really are not taking Steve Clarke at this point. They think he should be losing his job. I think all of us are of the opinion in the studio, unless I'm mistaken, that he has got 2 years left and his remit is quite simply get us to the World Cup.
No, I think from where we were to where we are now, I think he's got a squad there. You just have to look at the caps that the guys have got. There's a lot of people over 50 caps now, which he's given a chance, and they're coming into the squads, most months now, and they're all getting to know each other. I think we would all agree he's not left anybody out. I don't think there's anybody that we can say, oh, get him a chance. I think he's given everybody. He's been very, very loyal to a lot of players, maybe too loyal in some positions. But no, I think we're a better team now than what we were.
Yeah, and when we look and we hope that the manager can get lucky with some players coming through that can help his cause. We've obviously highlighted a few, and Lennon Miller could make that step up in the next year or two as well and give him even more options in the middle of the park. You just start to look and think to yourself, well, who could be coming up? Who could be a player that suddenly emerges along the way, and have we got a long-term plan for it? There was, I think, Dougie Anderson on Twitter has researched this. How many under-21 Scots are playing for Celtic Rangers in Aberdeen, in their top side? And it's none. I mean, it's 0%. Should we look too much into that, Tam?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we've got a duty to look into that, Peter. I think that, supporters want to see young Scottish players coming through. There's nothing better than a homegrown player coming through. I come through, as you know, with a great batch at Hibs, and a lot of them went on and get sold for big money. It's the same at other clubs as well, Motherwell, bringing players through. So,
is it difficult to judge? Is it difficult? Because a scout has to look and say, okay, everybody's talking about Lennon Miller. Has he got what it takes? Is he the real deal? I give you Jake Hastie at Motherwell. That whole thing where people are looking at what he was doing there. He'd only played something like 20 games. And then suddenly Rangers snapped him up and then it all went pear-shaped.
I think the difference with that is Peter Lennon's played, 70, 80, 90 games and he's 18 years old. He's playing every week. He's the captain. He's getting valuable experience at the minute at Motherwell. There's no doubt about that for me that he's going to move on to a bigger club. Rumours about Celtic today. I'd be surprised if they weren't looking at him. I think he's the best young player in Scotland at the minute. But when you look at Celtic Rangers, look at the facilities they've got. The catchment area, Glasgow. They should be picking up all the best young players. But if I'm a parent and my kid's 12 or 13 or 14 and Celtic and Rangers are in for my boy and so is Motherwell or Hamilton Accies, I'm telling him to go to Motherwell or Hamilton Accies. Pete, I don't care if I'm a Rangers fan or a Celtic fan, because that tells you everything you need to know. Young players are not getting a chance at Celtic Rangers. If you go to a Hamilton or a Motherwell when you're 16, 17, 18 and you're good enough, you're in the team. It's not the case at Celtic and Rangers and Aberdeen for that matter. So, yeah, I think we have got a duty to look at that. I think that, listen, there's so many questions you can come up with. Does the league need extended to give young players a chance? Are the players good enough? Young players good enough? Is the coaching good enough?
Yeah.
There's so many questions that people more qualified than me need to come around the table and discuss, because not only that, I think you look at the percentage all over Scottish football in the top league, there's not enough young players coming through at the clubs, so there needs to be something done about it. It's okay talking about it, but I think the SFA, the clubs, the SPFL all need to come together and say, right, how can we get more young players into the teams in the top flight?
Well, let me ask you this, and then I'll get the thoughts of the lads on this. When you're coaching as an SFA coach with the kids at Braidhurst, where do they all come from in these coaching?
So the catchment area, obviously, there's 5 or 6 performance schools. So the catchment area at Braidhurst would be Motherwell, that area, Bells Hill. So you have a lot of boys from Motherwell and Hamilton Accies who would come to that school and be coached. There's a couple at Rangers. Obviously Celtic have got their own school at St Ninians and Kirton-Tillet. A lot of the Celtic young players go there.
What is the remit for you in the coaching capacity? Is it strict? Is it a strict structure that the SFA have put in place?
Yeah, there is, Peter. Obviously we take them Monday to Friday, then they go back to their clubs. So we've just got to try and improve them technically, work on their technical abilities, their diet, all that stuff is important as well. Because we know when most of our players get to 15, 16, 17, that's the crucial part of development. Not only have they got to go and play every week somewhere and join a club, but they've got to be disciplined off the park, because there's a lot of things that can get sidetracked when you're 15, 16, 17. So we're trying to improve them technically, make them good football players, Peter, and then they go back to their clubs and they'll work tactically with them. But for us coaches, Monday to Friday, we're just trying to make these kids better technically, whether that be working on their weaknesses or strengths and making them technically better, and then they go back to their clubs.
Yeah. Surely it's more difficult when they get to Rangers and Celtic and Aberdeen or whatever, and all of a sudden an English club comes and takes them.
Yeah, that's another thing. Obviously with Brexit, Peter, a lot of clubs down south in England are coming up and taking all the best young players before they even get in the first team. I know Hamilton Accies sold 2 or 3 last season for 6 figures, and they hadn't played in the first team. Josh McDonald went down to Leeds. Cormac Daly went down to Nottingham Forest. Motherwell have sold players before they've even got in the first team, Peter. And when you're a club like a Motherwell or a Hamilton, somebody comes in for one of your young players who's not played in the first team and they're offering you 100, 150 grand, it's difficult to turn that down. You've got add-ons at the end of that, but then you're not getting them into the first team. So I have got sympathy with some of the clubs.
Celtic, because they're taking the Rangers and
Celtic and Rangers would sign a young boy for Hamilton. They would pay money for him. You've seen that with Bailey Rice. Rangers signed Bailey Rice from Motherwell. If Bailey Rice had stayed at Motherwell, he'd been the Motherwell's first team at the minute. No doubt about that for me. He was just as good. He's just as good as Lennon Miller. But Rangers bought him for, I don't know, 50, 100 grand, and he went to Rangers and he's not been cited. So that's another issue. The Celtic Rangers snap up younger kids for the smaller clubs, and then they stockpile all these kids into their under-18s and their B team, and they ended up not getting into the first team and drifting away, some of them.
When you say you work on the technical aspects of it, are you encouraging them to, skill, left, right foot, take on a player, dribbling? Is that an encouragement, or is it more an emphasis on control, touch, pass?
I mean, you don't want to overcoach players, Peter, but we want young kids to, and we've got a couple of young girls as well, we want them to express themselves and don't be scared to make a mistake. I think a lot of clubs, when I go and watch games, they're overcoached. Everything's keeping possession. You've seen that. A lot of people going, Pep Guardiola's ruined football, but you see a lot of teams who are just concentrating on keeping the ball. Yeah. When the ball goes wide, for me, I want to see my winger or a wide player taking the full back on. If you lose it 2 or 3 times, just keep getting at them. We don't shout at kids if they make a mistake, if they try and go around the full back and they get dispossessed. We just concentrate on the reaction, try and get the ball back and not just walk about. But I think you've got to encourage kids to be themselves. So they're kids at the end of the day. They're 12, 13, 14-year-old. You can't bog them down with tactics and systems. Just go and enjoy your football, go and express yourself and take people on. And I think that's what we try and do all the performance skills from Monday to Friday, is just try and improve them technically and don't bog them down with tactics and systems. That could possibly happen when they go back to their clubs, but I'm sure what we're doing with them Monday to Friday, the clubs are doing with them at the weekend as well. I'm
being slightly flippant, Ryan, but I was with one of my mates this morning and we were having a cup of coffee and we were laughing because we used to play a game, 10 bob a nutmeg. I don't know if you've ever played that at right back, but it's such a good game when you're playing in a match. You can nutmeg people as a wee side bet. But when you were playing as a youngster, were you encouraged, or were you more rigid in how to play the game? Were you encouraged to? I mean, I give you. From my point of view, I look at, for example, when I was growing up as a kid, I often say this to Danny McGrain when I run into him from time to time. When I was growing up, I thought all right backs beat 3 players and then crossed it for Kenny Dalglish to score the goal. Danny McGrain was so good at beating players roughly, wasn't he? I mean, he was a could be a hard defender, but boy, could he beat players with skill, couldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's modern day football now. I don't ever remember any of the teams under 15 under 14s that I played with anybody ever telling us a formation. You know, it was just defender, midfield, striker, you know, and things have moved on there. I'm not having a go at that. I'm just saying, way back then, it was never ever discussed. It was never say, right, we're going to defend today. We're going to try and beat this team that's better than us. You know, you just went out and played. You know, and I hate getting back. I keep hating getting back to 1971 when we beat Celtic 4-1. Our formation that day was 4-2-4.
Yeah.
2 midfielders in a game for 90 minutes. That's the 4 midfielders. You never see that happening ever.
Yeah, you did. You did recently, Dortmund.
Jimmy Calder used to do it at Dunfermline, remember when they were getting beat? They go 4-2-4.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one,
I think getting back to I don't think we realise how important the under-21 team is. We need, for the future, we need a good under-21 team. We need players coming through because they're not, as Tom's saying, they're not coming through at the club level. So if they're getting picked for the under-21, it's the best we've got, whether they're playing down in England, whether they're playing everywhere. We're relying on them coming up in the next 4 or 5 years. And that, again, I keep harping back. Way back when we were under 23, and there was 6 of us all come out of the under 23 team and went into the full squad.
Yeah.
You know, there was Kenny, Asa Hartford, Danny, Joe Jordan, Gordon McQueen, and they were all the nucleus of that Scotland team for 6 years, the next 6 years.
Ruffy, I think when you're looking at the under-21 team, I think you can always pick 5 or 6 who you think they'll play in the first team. I played with Darren Fletcher with Scotland under-21s, James McFadden, Sean Maloney, Gary Caldwell, guys like that, Craig Gordon, and there was always 5 or 6, and you would go, they'll get into the senior team. See now when I watched under-21s, I think Lennon Miller, yeah. Then I'm looking about and going, Max Johnson, possibly the right back who's over in Austria. There's maybe 2 or 3. You know, there's not, as you say, there's no. He's a certainty. He's playing every week. James McFadden was playing with Motherwell, and Darren Fletcher was in the room at the first team at Man United and guys like that. So I think it's harder now to look at the under-19s, under-21 team and think we've got 5 or 6 coming through to get into the first team. There's maybe only a couple of them now, Peter.
Yeah, another great thing about it as well, Ryan, which you won't be aware of, is I play 5-a-side with James McFadden, and he can still take the piss out of everybody in the park. I mean, just when you think you've got him, he flicks the ball away with that left peg of his, and he's an absolute joy. Sometimes the boys are so roughy. You'll know this from tennis, standing still while I'm running about. Sometimes the boys just look and go, wow. It's just unbelievable.
He's probably the last one of that old school kind of mentality. And my son's 9 now, and even when I go watch him, a lot of the training's a bit different to when I was a 9-year-old. And I think it's kind of getting away from, my best memories growing up was just games. You used to constantly play games, and kids will soon work out if something's working or if something's not working. And the quicker that they can make those mistakes and continually play games at any level, the better they play. And you look at Lennon Miller, for example, if he'd gone to Celtic or Rangers a few years ago as a 15, 16-year-old, he wouldn't be the player he is now, because he's now played 70, 80, however many games it is in a first-team environment. He's now working and developing himself on what's working and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely need to see, hopefully, some Scottish players. I would like to see some of the top clubs take a little bit of a gamble more on young Scottish talent, Tam, rather than suddenly just all of a sudden bringing in, for example, a Sam Lammers comes in and just doesn't cut it. What I'm saying is, don't waste a lot of money on lots of foreign players when you could take the same gamble on Bruce Ferguson would have been £1 million for Rangers.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of Rangers fans at the time thought he wasn't good enough for Rangers. He wouldn't get into the Rangers team, Peter. So
I don't know who they were.
I know, but I remember at the time thinking we should be looking for better than that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of the players that Rangers and Celtic, and you look at the facilities that Celtic Rangers have got. Rangers in particular, they've got a brilliant facility. Yeah. Up at Mulgai, and they should be bringing a lot more players. They invest heavily in their youth setup. So do Celtic. Hibs, I spoke about it the other day. I mean, I don't know if it's the facilities they're too pampered now. When I was coming through with Scott Brown and Kevin Thompson and Gary O'Connor, Ryard and all that, we would train at Wardy. It was like a rugby park. You know, there was no facilities. You would carry the goals down on a minibus. You would clean the boots. I don't know if they're too pampered now. Up at the Trinent, HTC is a wonderful facility. Everything's done for them. I don't know if the young kids still clean boots. I don't know if they do, or clean toilets, but that's what we done at Hibs, and it gives you a good grounding. And we didn't have great facilities, but maybe now. What was the last player that Hibs brought through? Ryan Porteous, probably 300 grand for him in the last 10, 15 years. For the money that Hibs invest in their youth set up, that's nowhere near good enough. Josh Doig, who started at Hearts.
Good shout, yeah.
Who started at Hearts, and I think Hearts released him and Hibs picked him up.
Yeah.
He left the big club.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is the line. Just on that, and again, you know, I often wonder about this. You guys will be able to tell me. You especially, Tam, but I'll come back to you on this point. Ruffy, you'll probably struggle to get involved in this next part of the conversation, which is, as a footballer, how do you deal with rejection? Because when you're geared
Why
up,
are you asking me this?
well,
one?
I'm asking
Leave
as
me
an observer, well, because I don't want to waste 20 minutes on Tam taking us through the whole
Some
career.
story.
But see, when you, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't realise, a lot of fans won't realise as well. But there's a buzz that starts around you when you're younger, and people say, "Oh, he's got a chance," and you get a chance to be a professional footballer, and that climb and that excitement of getting your first professional club is great for everybody. And then there's almost like that levelling out period where people are making judgments on you every day, and they're saying, well, I think you can go to this level, and you've got agents filling your head full of nonsense, you've got coaches, and then you've got a manager who's either going to play you regularly, you learn. At what point, is it really difficult to separate from all the hype of Ryan McGowan's going to be a top player, and then how painful is it when suddenly somebody says, well, Ryan McGowan, this is his level, and he's not going to get a new contract?
Well, I don't think I've ever had hype in relation to me, but I do remember, I was a bit different when I came over from Australia, signed for Hearts, and everyone back in Adelaide thought that was me, made it, and you signed for a professional club overseas. That was a dream, and then I arrived, and you realise that I think I was like number 47. So you then realise, well, I'm probably about 36 spots off making the starting lineup. So it was just, I had sort of a slowly progress through, and I just set little targets of, at the time when I first joined, I was 17, so it was to try and break into the 19s and be on the bench when I was younger. And then once I was in the 19s, was trying to get into the reserves. And then once I was in the reserves, into the first team. But I think the most difficult thing is getting into the first team is obviously really difficult, and making your debut and getting your chance, but it's then trying to consistently perform and be a sort of a starter, or somebody that people are debating in the pubs beforehand, he should play, he shouldn't play, because that does take time. And with a lot of managers, they tend to go with experience. If it's between a 17-year-old kid and a 27-year-old who's played 200 games, it's hard sometimes for a manager to be like, well, do you know what, I'm going to throw this kid in, because if he does make a mistake, he might make more mistakes than the 27-year-old or 30-year-old. But I know that if he keeps playing and keeps developing, then we could get a fee for him. So I think the manager and the club has to be right for that player to come through. But I think as a player, you just need to make sure you don't get too high. You make your debut, score a couple of goals as a striker or whatever. Don't do what Tom done and stay out all week in Edinburgh and enjoy it all. You need to kind of, you've not really made it. And
what was the lowest point for you?
At Hearts, I was coming through.
Anywhere as a footballer, as you look at your career, because I'm not being derogatory towards you. You're at the twilight of your career.
Yeah.
Relegated to Ayr United when I was there.
Yeah, I was on loan.
Basically the main reason.
Didn't score enough goals that season because time was up front. But
yeah.
What number was he? 87.
He fucking played like he was 87. Fucking hell. I don't know. There was probably a spell at Hearts when I made my debut when I was 18, and then there was probably about 18 months where I didn't play again, or I wasn't really on the bench, and that was probably a bit more of a struggle. We had, I think Shabalazlo came in and he wasn't really rating me, and I felt at that time it was possibly I might need to move if I wanted to play, and that was more difficult for me because I had that sort of taste from probably 17 to 18, 19. I was in and around the first team, and then he kind of came in and shuffled me to the back of the pack, and that was kind of difficult because I felt like I didn't want to go out on loan again because I'd already been out on loan a couple of times. I felt like I was ready to play in the first team, but the manager didn't sort of fancy me, and that was probably the most difficult part of my career, I reckon.
Yeah, and Ruffy, from your own point of view, you're young, you just burst into the team, you win the League Cup, you're all of a sudden, everybody's talking about you. Was there any roller coaster moments where it goes up and then it goes down?
Not at Thistle, I don't think so. No, I was in the first team when I was 16. And then I was there for 15 years. So, I didn't have any ups or downs. The only downs I really had was when I went in to negotiate a new contract with Betty. And that was quite alarming, But apart from that, no, I don't. And then I went to Hibs. I had a great 6 or 7 years at Hibs, and then went to Celtic for a year. So, not really any disappointments in the footballing side.
Yeah, and in contrast, Tam, is there a point in your life where was there a point in your life, I mean, I know we joke about the clubs, but people would give their right arm to have played for Hibs, and scored some of the goals that you've scored. So was there a point where suddenly you thought, I wish I could turn back time, I wish I could turn back the clock, I've made, all the potential, all the hype, all the chat, dearie me, was there a point?
Probably when I left Hibs, Peter, I went to Dundee. I'd been at Hibs for 7 years, and I'd signed 15 years worth of contracts, and I think I lost my hunger. I think that I'd came through and done really well at Hibs, and one of the seasons I was top scorer, and then I kind of rested on my laurels a wee bit. I thought, I'm the main man here, I'm the main striker here, and unfortunately I had Gary O'Connor coming through and Derek Ryland coming through underneath me, and I thought, I'll still be in the team, and then I had a poor pre-season and I found myself out of the team. And they two were in the team, and then by that time it was kind of too late, and Tony Mowbray came in, and I waited in D. So yeah, I probably should have screwed the nut more at Hibs in terms of off the park and working harder, and then I would probably had a better career at Hibs, and probably got a better move. No disrespect to Dundee, I'd probably moved on to a bigger club, maybe down in England. But I think you've got to be focused, and you've got to be hungry your whole career. And I was, as a young kid, 17, 18, I was really hungry to get into the team, and once I get into the team and all that, I feel that dissipated a wee bit. But yeah, probably the lowest part was leaving Hibs, because I was good enough to be at Hibs, but I'd let it slip in terms of my hunger and desire, and I'd let younger players overtake me. And that's what happens at any level. Yeah.
Did you ever get it back?
Briefly. I went to Dunfermline, had a good spell there, and I went to America and then in the MLS and played well there.
Did you play in America?
I did, I played.
Who was that with?
I went to Colorado, Colorado Rapids.
Yeah, hang on, Rochester's coming in a minute.
Yeah, I went to Colorado and done well there, and ended up going from Colorado back to Derry City, which, going to Irish football when I was only 26, 27, I thought to myself, not being disrespectful to Derry City with the clubs and the level I'd played at, I thought, I'm maybe on the way down here.
Yeah. Had you gone, in your mind, had you gone backwards as a player?
Possibly. I'd lost a yard of pace, Peter, when I'm at 25, 26, I wasn't as quick. But, I think that the lowest point for me was leaving Hibs, and then coming back to Derry City probably, and then didn't get paid that whole year. They went bust, as you know, and then I found myself bouncing about towards the end of my career. Yeah. But the start of my career was good, Peter, until I left Hibs.
What age did you chuck it?
I finished my career at Limerick, and I was about 33.
Wow.
33. Went over and played with Stuart Taylor. He was the manager of Limerick. He's now the number 2 at Dundee, and he gets sacked, and I found myself back here. But
so do you think you should have chucked it at 26?
I probably should have chucked it when I left Hibs, to be honest. When I was 23.
What made you, looking back, rest on your laurels when you were at Hibs?
I just think it was that much too early. When
is that like money or scoring and
money and scoring? Listen,
environment.
I remember coming through at Hibs. Kenny Miller had went to Rangers, and Alec McLeish gave me a 5-year deal when I was in the team at Hibs under Alex, and everything was going great for me. Great publicity, everybody on the next big thing. And then he left, and then Bobby came in, and I actually done well under Bobby as well. But I just think it was a case of, I maybe thought I'd made it. I was earning really good money for a 20, 21-year-old at Hibs.
Yeah.
I was getting, good write-ups in the papers and all that sort of stuff, and that should have kept me on to the next level. I should have thought to myself, right, I'm doing well at Hibs. I'm going to keep doing well, and then my next move's Celtic or Rangers, or possibly down south. Whereas I was quite comfortable at Hibs, and I got into a comfort zone at Hibs. I had 4 years left in my contract, and I thought I'm in a comfort zone. And I don't think you can do that at any club, Peter, because if you do that, if you don't keep training hard and have that hunger, whether you're at any club, there'll be players coming through and the younger players come through. And that's what happened at Hibs. There were younger players hungry to come through, and the manager thought, he's resting his laurels, he's not working hard. These 2 young kids deserve a chance. And that was the same with me coming through. I was that hungry kid as well. The hunter becomes a hunted kind of thing. But yeah. I remember that at Hibs, and I was coming through, and there was older guys and teamed up, Layman's, David Zatelli's, and I thought I want their place. And it was the same when I was in the first team established, and it was Derek and Gary coming through and thinking, well, I want Tam's place, and that's what happened.
Yeah, always interesting, because I think a lot of fans think it's the glamour of it all. There is no hardships in the background, but I always try and highlight the fact that sometimes, especially in the summer, footballers have that constant sense of what's next for me. I mean, if you're married and you've got kids, and suddenly you like an area, and then you've got to move, Ruffy. It's an upheaval. It's a constant upheaval, moving to certain places, and then of course trying to get what you're worth to keep the family, in half decent circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay if you're getting a move and it's a move on the way up, and you're getting everything you want financially, and your family's right behind you. But I think the 2 guys touched on it. A lot of people don't particularly realise what footballers go through when they're not the bee's knees. You were a first team player, and now you're out for 18 months. And modern day now, we keep talking about mental health. I dread to think what happened 30 years ago with footballers that were all of a sudden top notch, and then all of a sudden just discarded. There must have been hundreds of mental health problems going out with nobody to look after you, nobody to pull you aside, nobody at the club to say, "Oh, what's the matter with you? You're walking about, you're a bit downhearted," and that. And then you're away, you're away for all your pals, and if you're not married, if you're single, God, it must have been horrendous. Yeah, for a lot of footballers.
I mean, I think George Best chucked it, at 26, 27. And then eventually, he flirted back in and out of the game. That's fine if you're George Best, because you're tiding yourself over with some of the most beautiful girls in the world, and they're becoming your girlfriend. But it's not when you're Tam McManus and you're suddenly heading.
I thought you were comparing those two.
No, not a chance.
He was buzzing.
Not a chance. But
5 Miss Worlds between us.
Yes, absolutely. George was the exception to the rule. But again, it's a difficult situation. I thought it was worthy of us talking about it. Thanks to so many of you for commenting, and of course just giving your comments on some of the topics that we've been talking about, including, of course, Scotland. In a situation like this, Ruffy, I always like to do a wee thing that gives us a top 5. And I come up with the top 5 games. No, the top 5 games. That would be really, really good. The top 5 games you've attended.
Not as a player. Just
not as a player. I think games
attended that much because I've been playing for 20 odd years.
Yeah. I'll take
the top 5 games we've played in.
Yes, well, I'll take that, because I'll tell you what. Top 5.
He's struggling for 5.
No, he's away in another planet. The top 5 games that I've attended: Liverpool 0, Celtic 2. John Hart's and Heather Raker at Anfield. That was absolutely unbelievable, especially the build up to it, where the general consensus was that Liverpool had managed a draw at Celtic Park and Celtic were going to get pumped. I mean, it was incredible to see a Scottish side. Much the same, actually. I wasn't at the game, but I was in Manchester working at the time when the general consensus was that Leeds were going to wipe the floor with Rangers. and Rangers defeated them at Ellen Road, and they were absolutely magnificent. The other match, Champions League final, Ruffy, in Rome, Manchester United 0, Barcelona 2, where Messi was just on another planet, and Ronaldo was on the pitch trying to single-handedly do things rather than the team effort that Barcelona provided. And another one, I was working for Sky at the time, Motherwell 6, Hibernian 6, which Jutkiewicz hit an absolute raker into the roof of the net to make it 6-all. And France 0, Scotland 1.
Is that when your balls dropped that night?
Yes, and France 0, Scotland 1, almost certainly. I still commentate when James is in the fives, just in case he hits another raker. And the last one, Ruffy, was my first ever commentary, which was Bayern Munich 2, Wraith Rovers 1. And Danny Lennon scored the goal for Wraith Rovers to give them a half-time lead. And I always remember being in the Olympic Stadium and looking up and thinking, I mean, what a sign that is. Bayern Munich 0, Wraith Rovers 1. You just don't get to see that every day, right?
Definitely not. I think a lot of the Wraith fans, if they're old enough, would love to go back to those times. But yeah, that's just a crazy thought to think that Wraith Rovers were beating Bayern Munich at one point.
Yeah. Ruffy, 5 games.
5 games. I mean, I was in a game when I probably saw the best free kick I've ever seen. This boy Kubias.
Yes.
It was also a game when a guy called Zico curled one. They were tremendous.
2 great games.
Yeah, but I was there. I was watching them.
You've played in a game against the greatest ever Brazilian side never to win a World Cup. Is that fair?
Yeah, when we beat them 3-2 and they go to the final. Yeah, I saw.
No. You've missed the point there. You've missed the point of what I said. You beat Holland 3-2.
Right.
You've played in a game against the greatest Brazilian team never to win a World Cup.
Oh yeah, in Spain, yeah, they were fantastic.
4-1.
They were great. I watched that Italy game as well. I still can't believe how they never won that.
Yeah, Brazil.
They beat them. Yeah,
phenomenal.
It was amazing. But yeah, they were great sides. Just they, particularly the players that they had, like Socrates and Janino and Eder and all them, they were just top class.
Yeah, Williams says Motherwell missed a penalty in that 6-6 game. I mean, that's how mental it was. Colin Nish, I think, scored a hat-trick.
That's right, aye.
In the game.
I remember seeing Hibs' front three was Mignishi, Stokesy and Derek Riordan. And I thought, definitely goals there. Not a lot of work rate defensively. So I'm not surprised that finished 6 each. The best game I've seen, probably one of the best games, was Hibs beating Rangers in the Cup final, 2016. And the best game that I probably ever played in, well, not really the best game, was 4 each against Hearts at Tynecastle.
Yeah.
We were 4-2 up with 2 minutes to go and we drew 4 each. Probably as a neutral watching that game, you think, what a game, 4 each, Edinburgh Derby.
Yeah. And is there any game that you've been to that you've attended? I mean, do you attend a lot of games now where you say to yourself, oh, that was just brilliant, that was unbelievable? I know you've mentioned there a couple as a player. I mean, there's no point in saying the Liverpool game that we went.
I remember I was at the. I remember it was it Celtic beat Barcelona 1-0 and Alan Thompson scored? Was that UEFA Cup? Was that when somebody was fighting at half time? Rob Douglas and somebody was fighting at half time?
Douglas and the big guy Thiago Motta.
Aye, I was at that game. That was a great game. Celtic against Barcelona, but I can't remember anything I've been kind of watched as a.
I can't remember anything. I remember my dad, way back, took me to the Celtic Vojvodina game.
Oh yeah.
Correct me. Did John Hughes score that night?
I think it was 2, Ruffy. I wouldn't
remember going to that game, and I remember a good further, as I said to you before, I was at the Scotland-Austria game, where Scotland were winning 4-1 and the game got abandoned.
Yeah. I was at a game where I witnessed one of the greatest ever Old Firm. There's been lots of great Old Firm goals, but I was at a game where I witnessed one of the greatest Old Firm goals, which was Davy Cooper in the Driver Cup final, where he just whipped it up over 3 players, caught it on his chest and side-footed it into the back of the net and walked away as if it was a 5-a-side game and just put his hand up as if to say, that's normal. If you get 3 games in your head? Apart from the obvious one, which is the 5-1, which is
Yeah.
where you were magnificent.
Time was there.
Yeah.
Probably the World Cup that I played in, when we played against Holland. So that was my first start at the World Cup. I'd come on the game before against Chile, but to kind of start in a World Cup, they had just beat Spain 5-0, was it, in the first game? So to kind of come up against Holland, and who at that time in Brazil were like one of the red hot favourites, was a real pinch me kind of moment, because I went into that World Cup not expecting
2014?
to play a minute. Yeah, not expecting not to play a minute, and to actually be starting and to walk out. And
Who were you up against that day for Holland?
it was the front three of Van Persie, Robin, and
Van Basten.
No, that would have been 20
But
years
you're
earlier.
only 30 years
Van,
old.
Van Persie and Arjen Robben, which is
Robin scored.
Schneider?
Robin.
No, maybe
Did he
Schneider.
cut in? Did he
Yeah,
cut
they
in? He's
scored,
left. Don't let him cut in.
And then they brought on Memphis
Depay.
Depay. They
Yeah.
brought him on at half time, but he was only young, so no one really knew who he was. And I think his performance against me in that second half got him his move to
What was the
me.
score?
We got beat 3-2.
Yeah, it was not a bad result.
Bad result.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad result.
There's lots of people talking about, and Tam, I don't know if you were involved in this. Dundee 4, Hearts 4, Dundee winning penalties. Stuart Derrick's mentioned that. I can't remember that game, and I've been to a few. Peter Caddis says the best game ever for me was Liverpool winning the Champions League in 2005, which was absolutely brilliant.
3-0 down.
I didn't get to go to that game, but I remember one of the sponsors took a whole load of journalists out, and we went to a pub in Glasgow, and it was 3-0 down, and I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, being a Liverpool fan as well, I thought to myself, oh God, this is unbelievable. They're going to absolutely get battered.
Milan had some team on, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at that, the best game, the most dramatic finish I've ever seen in a game, bar the Hearts 4 each, was Man United against Bayern Munich in the Cup final, Champions League. How they won that game, I've struggled to remember. I mean, remember it went to 1 each, and then
That game that Peter's talking about, if it hadn't been for, what's his name, Jerzy Dudek, or whatever his name was,
Yes.
Savy,
Shevchenko, yeah.
right at the end was just incredible.
I wonder if you can tell us which defender scored for AC Milan. He scored actually the first goal, I think, in that game. AC Milan against
Nesta?
Liverpool.
Maldini.
Such an unusual thing to see Maldini scoring a goal. Do you remember the 3 Liverpool goal scorers, Ruffy? No?
Xabi Alonso,
Gerrard.
Yep.
Schmitzer.
Smitzer, second one. Yeah, absolutely. Good shout, by the way. You remember it through all everybody's legs?
Yep.
Who was the goalkeeper?
For Milan, Dida.
Dida. Yeah, great shout. Always like to check these things, Ruffy, a wee bit of...
Who scored for Milan?
Eh?
Who else scored?
Kaká went through with a beautiful goal. Dinked the goalie.
No,
No, that was
Crespo.
not. That was Hernan Crespo.
Crespo.
Yeah,
Kaká put him through. Did Kaká score?
I think Crespo get 2. Crespo get 2 and Maldini get the other. And then eventually Xabi Alonso actually missed the penalty and scored with a rebound. Yeah, Peter, that's a fantastic game. And here's a belter. I wonder what age Mark Fairfield is, because he's mentioned Bayern Munich versus St Etienne in the European Cup final at Hampden. Now, there's a shout, Ruff.
Year was that, Ruffy?
I'm going to give you listen, if you can...
Can't help you in that one.
No?
The only one I was at was the one when Zidane scored.
I think that game was 1975 or 1976 at Hampden, because the one guy that sticks in my head who scored in that match, I think, for Bayern Munich, I think it might have been 1970... I think it was 76, because 75 Leeds United were in the European Cup final and lost. So I'm going to go 76, and I'm going to go Roth scoring the winner for Bayern Munich. Now, Ruffy, are you going to give me some credit if I've nailed that?
If you haven't nailed it, I would have said maybe Hunes. Uli Hunes.
Uli Hoeneß.
Yeah. That was
Um,
Souness's twin.
yeah, exactly.
German twin.
The way he pronounces it is. And I'm just going to check it now just to see.
They're right good.
Oh, I hope he's not right. Please
Eh?
don't be right. Please
Well,
don't be right.
Well, come on, pay me a bit of credit here. The 1976 European Cup final, Hampden Park. I've even got the programme. Bayern Munich, St Etienne. Bayern Munich won, and the goal scorer is, let's see, Tam, just to really rub it into you. Oh my God.
Ross, 1-0.
1-0. I didn't see it as a classic, but nevertheless.
You get Peter on eggheads, didn't we?
That was magnificent. You got to hand it to me, Ruffy, for that. It's absolutely sensational. Ruffy, we're going to, we've been invited out to street soccer tonight.
Yes, we are.
I'm looking forward to it. Are you?
Yeah, I am. I think we were at the very first one when it started up, and it was
Were we?
Yeah, a great night. That I was anyway.
Yeah, what was that?
The first year they did it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who the guest speaker was now.
I think David Duke has got an award from the Queen for his
David
work.
Duke
He's
is
brilliant.
I think he's speaking tonight. He's
Yeah.
the first speaker, and the main speaker is Martin O'Neill.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. I have said to him, I spoke to him and said to him, you better be funny. And, he said, yeah, he's going to be really funny. So somebody must have written a script for him, Ruffy. So
It's probably because Des Clark's doing it,
yeah, the big one.
He'll have him
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's got the big.
You get the big compares for the big events.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Emma Dodds and Des Clark with Martin O'Neill. Should be a good night.
Yep.
Do you like going to these dinners, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't mind them.
Yeah. Are you
A couple of your ones.
Yeah, good for a noise up. But I've got to ask. Yeah, I noticed you hiding at the back.
Make sure as soon as I seen you on stage, I just sat at the back.
Can I tell you a good one? When we did it, we used to do a wee lunch on a Sunday, and I invited Tam as a guest at my table, and Peter was doing the auction, the raffle, and Tam had bought like a tenner's worth of raffle tickets, So just before the raffle was getting done, Peter Warden just up to my table saying, "How you doing, everybody? How you doing, Tam? How you doing?" That he's clocked his raffle ticket numbers. The star prize, what was it? The star prize.
There's a Messi signed framed strip.
Yeah.
And it was like green 427 or something like that, and Tam jumps out his seat. Oh, yeah, dancer! And
Walked all the way through the
walked
crowd.
all the way through all the tables and everything, up to the front. He went, "Where do you go and get?"
It's green 147.
Oh, absolutely done. My face was beetroot, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good night. And by the way, full marks, you're right, Ruffy. David Duke and the street soccer team have worked wonders, not just here in Scotland now, but right across UK with it all.
Yeah, and they're abroad as well. I think they just come back to somewhere. But I think, did you not do the highlight one in George Square?
Yes, we did. Well, no, that was the homeless World Cup. We did that in George Square as well.
We never took a fee.
I think I did actually. Nevertheless,
That's shocking.
anyway,
He was out with some top people that time.
yeah. Don't. Are you just going to annoy people that you can have a dig at? Just one last little thing, by the way. We've announced and we've checked your appearances, Ryan, so you're available and you're allowed to go to the PLZ Christmas party.
Yes, yeah, I should be.
Which should be, it's a right good night, Tam, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be good.
Do you have a wee tipple, a wee favourite tipple?
What do you drink, Ryan, when you're out?
And a night of completely what?
Do like a beer.
Beer.
Be a drinker.
Yeah,
Put him up the top table with the other.
Aye.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm a Malibu pineapple or Malibu Diet Coke.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, it's amazing how the difference between last year's picture at the Christmas party and this year's.
There'll be a few new faces.
Yeah, absolutely. What a
You've
turnaround.
sacked everybody.
No, it's not the case at all. Anyway, thanks to Ruffy for trying to leather everybody that's annoyed him on the show. Thanks to Ryan as well, and to Tam McManus. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and also download the app, which you can watch all our content at your leisure, and you'll also get all the breaking football news as well. Thank you for listening and watching.